All right, so we got a little bit of positive news here as we are currently witnessing Joe Biden's entire social spending agenda that was supposed to be going towards materially improving the lives of working class Americans basically just get completely eviscerated and gutted by a handful of corporate Democrats. Workers are deciding to take matters into their own hands. We have seen a pretty large strike wave recently. I've covered it on this channel. Some are referring to it as Striketober. And we got some good new polling data here that is basically showing that not only are these workers absolutely correct in engaging in mass collective action with their fellow workers to try to extract concessions from the capitalist ownership class, but not only are they correct in doing that, but the American people are overwhelmingly behind them in this fight. So here's some new polling data that was done by the AFL-CIO in partnership with Data for Progress. So survey shows broad public support for worker strikes. And in a survey commissioned by the AFL-CIO Labor Federation, a strong majority said workers were right to walk out for better pay and benefits. So here's some of the details. So workers at companies like Kellogg's, Nabisco, and John Deere have hit the picket lines in recent weeks hoping to get a better deal from their employers, and a new survey suggests that the public by and large supports them. And the AFL-CIO Labor Federation commissioned the progressive pollster Data for Progress to take the public's temperature on the strikes that have made headlines this summer and fall. And the online survey of nearly 1,300 likely voters asked if they, quote, approve or disapprove of employees going on strike in support of better wages, benefits, and working conditions. And the results were pretty lopsided. So 74% of respondents either strongly approved or somewhat approved of the strikes, while just 20% strongly disapproved or somewhat disapproved of them. That's absolutely massive. And 6% did not have an opinion. But not surprisingly, the backers of the strikes was the backing of strikers was strongest among Democrats, 87% of whom approved of the walkouts. But support was still robust among independents and even Republicans, with 72% and 60% approval respectively. And honestly, that's surprisingly high. 60% that an overwhelming, a decidedly majority of Republicans, even in the face of all of the corporate propaganda that they are subjected to on a daily basis, that they are still overwhelmingly siding with striking workers. And they continue here giving a little bit more of a perspective, saying that Ethan Winter, the senior analyst for Data for Progress, said that the survey results on strikes seemed to dovetail with Gallup's polling on union favorability, which this year hit its highest level since 1965. Of course, we went through the entire Reagan era, the era of trickle-down economics and union busting. That was really followed up by multiple more presidential administrations, Democrat and Republican, that were also much more in line with a Ronald Reagan-type economic worldview than they would have been in line with the pro-union FDR worldview that used to win Democrats overwhelming majorities. I mean, we went from, Ronald Reagan, we had a number of other presidents, even Democratic presidents like Bill Clinton, who were not pro-union, who were actively, in many cases, actually engaging in action against the benefits of unions. But either way, the highest that it has been since 1965. So it shows you we're seeing a massive sea change, basically, in the United States in terms of how we view unions. But they say that as people warm to unions and collective bargaining, it is no surprise that they support striking workers, he said. And he says, I think across many dimensions, the pandemic has really put workers' rights at the forefront of public consciousness. And the fact that we now see a bipartisan majority of voters who are backing workers agitating for better pay, benefits, and working conditions, I think it's reflective of the sea change the coronavirus pandemic has brought about. And the recent strikes and strike threats have given rise to this hashtag, like I was saying, Striketober, as a growing number of workers buoyed by a tighter than expected labor market use their leverage to improve wages, benefits, and safety. And I think, again, this is just a broader picture of that, right? Because if Americans support a union's ability to go and strike and demand better pay, better conditions, better benefits, etc., then they also overwhelmingly support those things as a standalone measure themselves. If Congress could get their shit together and actually pass some of this stuff so that workers were not forced to go and beg for the absolute bare minimum. But again, it just shows you the massive sea change that is taking place here in terms of favorability towards labor unions. But they finish here just to give it a little bit of a historical perspective. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, the number of workers involved in large work stoppages of 1,000 people or more this year has already surpassed the total of 27,000 workers from the pandemic year of 2020, which was among the lowest in modern times. But the number of striking workers is still small by historical standards, and following World War II, somewhere between 1 million and 2 million workers went on strike in a typical year, and that was at a time when roughly a third of the U.S. workforce belonged to unions, compared with about 11% now. So we are at 1/3 of the amount that we were at when we had potentially millions of people who were going on strike. So it shows you, historically, we still have not caught back up basically to the FDR days and the 1950s and early 60s when we had massive union membership in the United States, and we know the consequences of that. Okay, I brought these graphs up before before on this channel, but you see here a basically direct correlation between union membership and the share of income that is going to the top 10%. So this is what trickle-down economics gets you. So you see here, union membership goes down, share of the income going to the top 10% skyrockets, no surprise there. And again, another map to put it in perspective, we have here union membership and productivity going up. So even though union membership is going down, but their productivity, workers are being much more productive, and yet their hourly compensation has stagnated. So you see it all right here. I mean, this is a perfect correlation of what the actual problem is going on here in terms of stagnating wages over time among the American working class. You see it here, right? Union membership goes down and your hourly compensation is going to stagnate. It's not that complicated. Even if your productivity is going up, they are not going to willingly reward you for the value that your labor is producing. In order to actually get rewarded for the value that your labor is producing, you form a union and you go to your bosses and you demand it, okay? They're never going to give it willingly, and if you are divided, then that gives management, that gives corporations the ability to use a divide and conquer approach among the workforce, and that's basically the main lesson of this, okay?